Monster of the Loch by Edwina Longbottom. Chapter 1. The Highland Invitation. The mist hung low over the rolling hills of the Scottish Highlands, a curtain of shifting shadows tinged with the first light of dawn. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of moorland heather and the distant lochs. In the village of Drumnadrochit, nestled close to the infamous Loch Ness, preparations were underway for another day of mystery and allure. This was the realm of Stephen McAllister, the charismatic owner of Loch Haven Tours, whose reputation had spread like wildfire among the wealthy and curious. Stephen, tall and rugged with piercing blue eyes, had woven a tale of intrigue around the legend of Nessie, promising participants a chance to encounter the mythical creature. His tours were exclusive, allowing only 2 guests per excursion, a marketing strategy that capitalized on intimacy and the privilege of exclusivity. Beneath the disarming charm and impeccably crafted persona, however, lay darker motives. Unlike most, Stephen had little interest in the legends and mysteries of the loch. His mind was a locked chamber of calculated plans and dangerous ambitions. As dawn broke, he stood on the dock, surveying the waters with a predatory gaze, calm and assured. Today's guests were a wealthy couple from Zurich, the latest in a long line of affluent adventurers drawn by the tour's promise. They arrived promptly, smiles wide with anticipation, unaware of the danger that awaited them. Inside his modest office by the dock, Stephen exchanged pleasantries, offering assurances of an experience like no other. His charm was spellbinding as he offered steaming mugs of tea, engaging them in conversation about their travels and fascination with the loch. Once aboard the sleek, modern vessel, the couple marveled at the misty expanse of water stretching before them. Stephen cast off the moorings and steered the boat into the heart of the loch, gliding effortlessly over its dark surface. Behind them, the village receded, swallowed in the swirling fog. As the boat coasted further from shore, Stephen maintained his guise, pointing out landmarks shrouded by drifting clouds. But beneath his composure, his mind ticked with the precision of a finely tuned clock. He waited for the right moment, preparing to enact his sinister plan. The loch lay before them, ancient and enigmatic, yet unaware of the man who saw it not as a historic mystery, but as his domain, a silent accomplice to his grim activities. The sun crept higher, trying in vain to pierce the oppressive shroud of fog, leaving only the rhythms of the water and the whisper of the wind as witnesses to what lay ahead. Chapter 2. Beneath the Surface. The boat sliced through the mist, its engine a low hum against the whispering loch. Stephen's guests, Klaus and Ingrid Bauer, leaned eagerly over the bow, oblivious to the silence that had begun to settle. The air here, cut off from the world by a curtain of gray, felt charged with anticipation, or perhaps it was merely the sense of isolation stretching across the water. "Here," Stephen announced, tapping one slender finger against the radar display screen, "is where sightings often occur. Patience and a watchful eye, I always say. Nessie is elusive, but she reveals herself to those who truly seek." Klaus adjusted his glasses, peering into the fog. "It's exactly as I imagined," he murmured to Ingrid, who clasped his hand tighter, as if assuring herself of his solid presence. Stephen watched them with a calculating smile, concealing the turmoil brewing beneath, his rehearsed script for the day, the gun nestled securely within his coat, and the looming ultimatum he would deliver. Each tour had its nuances, its small adjustments to new variables, but the core remained unchanged: lure, isolate, coerce, erase. The couple, he decided, would pose no significant challenge. Their demeanor spoke of wealth draped in naivete, an appetite for thrills over vigilance. As they drifted deeper into the loch's embrace, Stephen began his carefully crafted tale, recounting local myths interwoven with half-truths, tantalizing glimpses of discovery amid shadows. The stories flowed, crafted to engage, to ensnare, leaving naught behind when their purpose was served. With gentle precision, he nudged the topic toward the inevitable, the true spectacle beyond myth and rumor. He reached inside his coat, heart thumping with a thrill that had not dulled despite countless enactments. The mist seemed to pulse with the beat of wings from ages forgotten, a mythic resonance cloaking Stephen's grim resolve. Would today mark another fall into silence, another pair lost to the loch's depthless secrecy? Or might this be the day the intricate dance faltered, when whispers of the hunt became shouts of revelation? Chapter 3. The Turn of the Tide. The boat continued to glide through the mist, an island adrift in an endless sea. Stephen's hand moved with practiced ease, seemingly innocuous as he adjusted his coat. But the Bowers were no longer focused on the tour guide. Their eyes scanned the horizon for any sign of the fabled creature. Klaus snapped photos, his high-end camera lens aimed at empty patches of mist, while Ingrid clutched a notebook, ready to record any observation. The anticipation was palpable, both in their expressions and in the quiet that enveloped them, a silence Stephen was about to break. He smiled at their unwitting absorption, his finger finally brushing against the cold steel of the concealed pistol. Clearing his throat, he eased closer, his gaze alighting on Klaus first, then Ingrid. Words came smoothly, a well-oiled machine. Ladies and gentlemen, while our tour here at Loch Haven seeks the mysterious, today offers a discovery of another kind. The couple turned to him, curiosity piqued. But before Stephen could fully enact his charade, the radio on the boat's dashboard crackled to life unexpectedly. A voice, calm with a hint of urgency, called out through the static. "Loch Haven vessel, this is the Highland Ranger Unit. We've received reports of unauthorized activity in your area. Please respond." Stephen's heart leapt to his throat. His grip on the pistol tightened as the veneer of control threatened to crack. He could see the Bowers exchanging quick, uncertain glances, the sharp cut of concern slicing through their prior sense of adventure. "Apologies. Technical glitch," Stephen said smoothly, casting a mirthless smile as he reached for the radio, his mind racing. Nothing to worry about. Yet, even as he reassured them, his senses stretched, assessing the sudden shift in dynamic. Ingrid's eyes lingered on his hand, her intuition sharper than her husband's. "Mr. McAllister, what is going on?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tremor of underlying fear. Stephen hesitated, calculating options. The radio call was a complication, but not insurmountable. To maintain control, he needed to outmaneuver not just his guests, but the watchful eye of those on shore. His charm flickered back like a mask slipping into place. "Simply a precautionary measure, I assure you," he replied, setting the radio aside. "The loch can be unpredictable. We take every safety protocol seriously." The couple nodded, reassured for now, though doubt lingered like a dark cloud. Stephen turned his attention back to the water, recalibrating as he mentally evaluated the chances of eluding curiosity and authority alike. Around them the mist sighed, curling tighter as if to shield secrets anew. Within the dungeon of his thoughts, Stephen reassembled his fractured plan. This game of shadows was not over, merely altered, and the loch, with its deep, ancient heart, still waited. Chapter 4. Threads of Pursuit. Far from the loch, in the bustling heart of Inverness, Inspector Fiona Mackenzie shuffled papers at her cluttered desk. The Highlands, with their deep-loamed histories and tangled tales of myth, rarely drew such attention from her office. But the string of disappearances could no longer be dismissed as mere coincidence. She had scoured every report, each one more puzzling than the last. Wealthy tourists who vanished without a trace. Local gossip did nothing but thicken the fog of intrigue. A Nessie tour spun out of control, whispers claimed, or wilderness ghosts claiming the lost. Fiona's instincts hummed with curiosity and urgency. Something far more mundane and sinister than folklore stirred beneath these disappearances. She leaned back, eyes narrowing at the map pinned against her wall, with red threads connecting known sightings and last whereabouts. Her thoughts were interrupted by Detective Ian Fraser's boots clomping across the worn floorboards. "Morning, Fiona. Looks like we just received another inquiry about those missing folks. Seems our local legend's turning into more than just a tale over a pint." She arched an eyebrow, skimming the brief. Another missing party, corresponding with yet another exclusive tour by Loch Haven. This time, a wealthy couple from Zurich. Fiona felt the rising swell of intuition mingling with fact, a pattern spun in half, concealed threads just waiting to be unraveled. "Let's pay Stephen McAllister and his tour business a visit," Fiona said decisively. "Time we got some answers about what's lurking around the loch, above or below that fog." Ian nodded, grabbing his jacket and a notepad, ready to head out. As they left the station, Fiona's mind mapped through strategies, interviews, analysis, everything needed to bring clarity back to the Highlands, where myth and reality blurred dangerously. Chapter 5. Fog and Daggers. Back on Loch Ness, Stephen McAllister wrestled with the slippery threads of his disrupted plan. The radio call had not only unsettled his guests, but forced him to recalibrate quickly. Klaus and Ingrid remained nervous, their initial excitement winnowing into wary vigilance. Stephen, ever the performer, continued to engage them, weaving more tales of the loch's mysteries. Time was of the essence. He needed them back in the net of charm and susceptibility. He feigned a sudden interest in changing the boat's course, steering toward a supposed new location rich with sightings. It was a calculated move, an assurance to his guests, yet a necessary delay to reconsider his options. The radio sat ominously silent, and the echo of the initial call still loomed like an unseen sentinel. Stephen's calculating mind flicked between self-preservation and the exact point where his grip could falter. As they motored closer to the loch's center, Ingrid's gaze strayed to the console. Her sharp eyes caught something Stephen hoped his persona had camouflaged, a mix of tension and the subtle tremor in his hands. It dawned on her then, the insidious plaudits barely concealing menace. "Klaus," she murmured, drawing her husband's attention under the pretense of admiring the view. "Something isn't right. We need to be cautious." Klaus, slower to understand the peril, dismissed her concerns at first, wrapped up in the allure of their rare adventure. Yet, as time passed and the lake grew vast and isolating, Ingrid's words grew roots of worry. Stephen, sensing the shift, knew he had to regain control silently. He adjusted the engine's throttle, fine-tuning their path through the crested water as if guiding them toward an unseen precipice. But then, the unexpected, a ripple ahead large enough to draw attention. It broke the heavy tranquility of the loch, a disturbance neither typical nor accounted for. It wasn't Nessie, as he had woven tales to suggest, but an opportunity or a distraction. "Klaus, look," Ingrid whispered, pointing. "Do you see?" Stephen leaned in as if blissfully intrigued, but internally he weighed whether their distractions were worth the gamble. Would nature's phantom gift him time, or finally unravel his carefully constructed deceit? The couple exchanged hopeful glances, enticed at last by the mystery they sought. Stephen, however, ripened his own strategies under the spell of the loch's natural grandeur, aware that both nature and his own fabrications could converge upon him at any moment. Chapter 6. From Shadows to Light. Fiona and Ian arrived at the Loch Haven Tours dock, greeted by an unexpected quietude. The office, typically bustling with guides preparing for the day's tours, was oddly desolate. Fiona's instincts bristled, further prickled by the tangled mysteries surrounding McAllister. Ian pushed open the office door, their presence sweeping through untouched papers and items left in disarray. Fiona, undeterred, proceeded with swift, probing glances, her inner compass guided by experience and intuition. They found what they initially sought: ledgers of booked tours, guest registries, receipts, and a hidden trove of digital archives. Yet Fiona's focus shifted when Ian unearthed a volume bound in worn leather, containing first-hand accounts of earlier tours, scribbled in handwriting familiar to Stephen's. Not mere ledger entries, but observances, hints of obsession with the loch, occasional veiled frustration. The inconsistencies in records, guests listed but left unchecked, photographs persistently missing after certain tours, signaled an alarming trend that bolstered her unease. Fiona felt the struggle of myth against impending revelation, knowledge juxtaposed against the macabre possibilities of McAllister's ambitions. As they sifted through documentation, Ian paused, holding up a marked map, one detailing specific locations on the loch routinely visited. So, he had preferred routes, recurrent focal points, patterns developing. Just as Fiona inspired theories, a figure appeared at the dock's entrance, a man, rugged yet affable, with eyes too misleading to be trusted. "Can I help you folks with something?" Michael, a seasoned guide, asked them, unaware he had trespassed closer to truth than even he realized. Fiona straightened, conviction rising within her stance. "We're examining recent tours and aligning them to disappearances. We hope McAllister could shed light on the matter." "I reckon Stephen's out there now, another Nessie tour," Michael said, scratching his chin. "But he often takes his own detours, knows the loch like his backyard." A faint, brittle smile traced Fiona's lips as she nodded, acknowledging both the helpful hint and the deeper currents at play. "In your opinion, Michael, does anything about these routes seem unusual?" Michael hesitated, his loyalty to his employer teetering against the genuine sense of something awry. Stephen's got a reputation for flair and stories, but lately, it's like he's chasing something else out there, not just the myth. His admission, though cautious, was enough to weave another thread into Fiona's understanding, a self-made destiny McAllister might be carving within the fog. "Thank you, Michael," Fiona said, her mind already formulating her next move. "Stay close. We might need your insight again soon." Chapter 7. Drowning Secrets, Rising Truths. Back at the center of the loch, the swirl of fog gave way, revealing an unexpected clarity, much like the truths now beginning to unveil themselves. Stephen, feeling the balance shift against him, capitalized on this rare pocket of visibility, combining charm with new resolve. "Looks like luck favors us," he mused, concealing the urgency that sparked within. "You wanted a Nessie sighting. Perhaps today's the day the loch is generous." But Klaus, emboldened by Ingrid's earlier warning, started piecing together inconsistencies. The radio, the tension, the predatory undertone masked by Stephen's narrative. The adrenaline of an unseen threat began pulsating through his veins. Ingrid's hand slipped toward her bag, her fingers brushing against a cell phone, all but forgotten in the thrill of exploration. Acting on instinct, she slipped it out, half wondering if contacting anyone was even possible this deep in the loch's embrace. Stephen continued steering the narrative, yet the salve of his words no longer wooing the couple, both now growing increasingly attuned to their precarious situation. The fervor of legend sought unwitting prey. Stephen, the cunning hunter, now the hunted as their resolve crystallized. "Stephen," Klaus ventured, chest tightening with the effort of challenging the guide's authority, "why don't you tell us something real, like what you're truly after?" The muted clanking of the boat's hull against the placid waters accentuated the dawning confrontation. Stephen turned to face them full on, his smile waning under the scrutiny of eyes no longer naive nor heedless. The stillness of the loch pressed close, the air between them sighed with promise and peril alike. Stephen weighed his next move, knowing this dance approached its climax, aware that every overture carried the echo of consequence. Yet even as his grip faltered, the possibility of adaptation lingered, to twist fate anew, to seize the metamorphosis from exposed perpetrator to embattled soul. The loch watched with ancient eyes, impartial to truth or lie, its depths poised to accept whatever secrets it was offered, or reveal. Chapter 8. Revelations and Reckonings. At the dock, Fiona's resolve solidified, spurred by the knowledge gleaned and the mounting urgency to intercede. She and Ian boarded their vessel, engines sputtering to life as they charted a course towards Stephen's known haunts. The echoes of tales past resonated, fueling her determination to merge legend with reality, exposing the truths hidden within the mists. The proficiency of her guide, Michael, was not lost on Fiona. His practical knowledge and insights became her conduits through the loch's veil, a silent alliance formed in pursuit of justice and clarity. As they neared the map's marked coordinates, Fiona's instincts sharpened, her soul a compass attuned to the ripples of time and deception. The Highland backdrop whispered of folklore, but her heart beat to the pounding rhythm of revelation, justice poised to surface. Meanwhile, Stephen's carefully controlled facade slipped by the inch, the inquiry from his guests fraying the edges of his composure. Their watchfulness demanded a recalibration of his cunning, an opportunity to pivot his narrative once more. Klaus and Ingrid, now resolved to uncover truth over fantasy, stood united in their silent pact. Whatever danger lingered in Stephen's shadows, they intended to face it together. The echoes of motors heralded Fiona's approach, and with it arose the critical intersection of paths, timelines converging in a single moment of destiny. Stephen perceived the approaching vessel, realization flickering behind his eyes. The loch's depths glowed with ancient imprimatur, eager for what might be transacted upon its surface. His grip on control, tenuous now, loosened ever further. Fiona's boat edged closer, the shadow of accountability stark against the mist. With a final surge of determination, she hailed the Loch Haven vessel, her voice clear and authoritative over the synchronous roar of engines and lapping waves. "This is Inspector Fiona Mackenzie of the Highland Police. Stephen McAllister, we need to speak with you immediately regarding recent disappearances." The once menacing expanse of water now turned into a converging ground for disparate fates. Stephen's criminal tapestry, the couple's desire for truth, and Fiona's pursuit of justice. The loch's age-old silence seemed to amplify the anticipation, every ripple a beacon drawing light to what had been shrouded for too long. Klaus and Ingrid exchanged looks of relief and resolve, their subtle hope winking like starlight amid shadows. Stephen, though cornered, held a hint of defiance in his eyes, a mind that had long orchestrated deceit now tempted by one last gamble. Fiona's vessel drew alongside, and the inspector stepped assertively onto Stephen's boat, her presence igniting a shift in power. The loch, its surface stretching like a mirror, framed this human tableau of enacted destiny, the quiet sigh of air and water a participant in the drama unfolding upon it. Stephen McAllister, Fiona's voice cut into the stillness, crisp as sunlight over the loch. We are investigating several cases of missing tourists from your tours. You're required to accompany us for questioning. For a moment, Stephen stood unmoving, his thoughts a maelstrom of past and present colliding. Then the weight of inevitability anchored him in place, the charisma he wore like armor slipping away, revealing the man faced with the past's encroachment. Ingrid, sensing this crack in Stephen's veneer, spoke softly yet firmly. "Let justice rise, Stephen. It's time." Her words rippled across the water, touching upon Fiona's faith, Klaus's vigilance, and finally, Stephen's prison of denial. The loch that bore witness now cradled this moment of truth, holding fast the stories beyond the realm of mere legend. Silently, Stephen nodded, resignation warming like twilight over despair. He moved towards Fiona, surrender not merely physical, but an acceptance of the broader reckoning his deeds had manifested. In the immediate aftermath, as Fiona led Stephen onto her boat, the Highlands exhaled softly, a breath of history clinking into new narrative. Klaus and Ingrid exchanged a final parting glance with Fiona, gratitude threading between them, for vigilance rewarded and for truths unearthed. Together, boats and passengers eased back through the mist, the boundary between legend and reality no longer a chasm but a bridge. The loch watched as it always had, its depths a repository for stories, secrets mingled with silty echoes, leaving none unchanged by its touch. Epilogue: Echoes of the Loch. In the ensuing weeks, Fiona's investigation stirred the small villages surrounding Loch Ness. Stephen's confession shed light on the disappearances, the labyrinthine plots he orchestrated, unraveled under scrutiny. The wealth he coveted, submerged with specters of the lost, lay bound to justice, rising from deep waters. Loch Haven Tours shuttered its doors, the legend of Nessie intertwined now with tales of courage and consequence. The loch continued its eternal vigil, hosting new seekers, tempered by stories of crime and conviction. For Klaus and Ingrid, the narrative of their adventure transformed, a testimony to resilience and the human spirit's capacity to grapple with myth and reality. They departed Scotland, richer in understanding, their journey chronicled not by views alone, but by insights gained beside those haunting waters. Fiona, steeled by the communion between investigator and legend, returned to her duties amidst the Highlands. The mysteries of loch and glen called to her ever still, yet a small part of her dwelled always on the murmurations of Nessie boats and secrets caught in nets not wrought from myths alone. In the end, the loch remained, its eyes ageless, its heart a vessel for shadows and stories unnumbered. Where deeds lay interred beneath ripples and skies, justice stood the loftiest silhouette against horizons eternal. In this eternal dance of beings and beliefs, loch and land nurtured legacies of their own, carving narratives as enduring as the peaks around them and the waters glistening below.